All right, so that's the new movie from Rian Johnson, Loopers. Of course, this first movie was Brick. Yeah, and that was killer. And then The Brothers Bloom, which I really enjoyed as well. Yeah. But I think for me, this is his best one. I'm a big fan of time traveling movies, stuff like that.
Yeah, you really can't go wrong with it. You can if you really mess it up. But
well, if you like Crossroads and Glitter, and you're like, man, I can't wait to see that new Mariah Carey movie, and then you go see Looper, you're like, oh shit, I don't understand that.
I guess that's true. It's not for everybody in that regard.
That's true. But so I guess I'm going to give a little bit of information about it real fast, and I want us to kind of talk about it because I know we all had different opinions. Some of us liked it, some of us really liked it, and some of us thought it was great. So we can talk about it. But, of course, obviously, Bruce Willis, Joseph Gordon-Levitt, Emily Blunt. It's a time-traveling movie where... What's 2074.
What's the kid actor's name? Because he nails it.
Yeah. I didn't pull that up because I didn't care he was a kid. Oh, and he wasn't an underage girl, so I didn't care to learn his name.
There you go. Yeah.
But so obviously it's a time traveling movie where the time travel is outlawed, but criminal organizations use it to take care of the people they want to kill.
Well, they didn't say it's outlawed. It's just super heavily regulated.
Well, yeah, by the government, right? So somehow, of course, like all things, the black market takes care of it.
Yeah, and they have their own system of time traveling. So
here's my one thing I don't understand: when they're sending people back to be killed by them, by the loopers, and then the loopers have to take them to a place and dispose of them. Why don't they just send them back to the place where they dispose of them?
Yeah. Like that's the thing. Like, why travel with a body when you can just like have them appear in a furnace?
Yeah,
that's already active, and just be like, oh shit, I'm burning.
There you go. That's the review of Looper. It was dumb. All right. So Tev, you saw it yesterday. So why don't you give us what did you think seeing it the most recently?
I really enjoyed it. I thought it was kind of different. Like you mentioned before, to where it was actually a movie. It wasn't something that was an adaptation or anything. It was just like a well-written movie.
Yeah, original content. It's kind of nice.
Yeah, I liked it. I really, really liked Joseph Gordon-Levitt more than I thought I would. I think his acting as a young Bruce Willis character was pretty much right on, and the weird CGI was awesome. But I also see your point where there was a lot of stuff that was like, where's more of that? Yeah. Who is this little kid? Well, tell me more about the Rainmaker, Yeah. And for certain parts, it was almost like I was in like X-Men 3 when they were having that same discussion with like Jean Grey. It was like, so this is a little bit about Jean Grey's little brother for about like 5-10 minutes. Did no one else feel that? Like, I really felt like that was something that was kind of out of
X3.
X-Men.
All right.
I never saw it sober.
Oh, okay. Well, there's...
Well, there was like this whole meeting when like both like Xavier and Magneto are like both talking to a young Jean Grey, and they're trying to like persuade her which different side, or they're having their own internal debate about, right? Did you see X3?
Okay.
Where they're having that internal debate, and they're going to pick her up as a young Jean, like for a little bit, like I kind of felt like that.
So they touched on something you wanted them to come back to a little bit more.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, well, this seems really similar to this story, so tell me how it's different, how it's not like this.
Okay, for the people that don't, let's go ahead and tell them. The Rainmaker is, the plot of the story is that Joseph Gordon-Levitt is a young Bruce Willis, both named Joe. It'd be weird if his name changed over time, but
that happens all the time.
Right. So Bruce, they send in the future. They catch Bruce Willis, send him back to be assassinated by his younger self, and that's unlike what I thought going into the movie. That is a normal thing. Like I thought, oh, it's weird. They must be wanting you. It's called closing your loop, and the way they take care of the killers is 30 years after you started, your contract's closed, and they send you back, and your younger self kills you, and then you get gold bars instead of silver. And so it's it's not an unheard of thing to close your loop. And so it's kind of something in the profession, which I thought was kind of neat, as opposed to just, oh, that was the one guy that had to do it, And it deals with when Bruce Willis comes back, he has information about the future, and he's going to try to alter the past to affect the future, because essentially there's a guy called the Rainmaker who's ultra powerful, and he's going around closing all the loops and killing people and taking over the world and destroying stuff. So without giving too much away, that's the basic premise of the movie. So when we talk about the Rainmaker, we're talking about a character who is portrayed by a kid in the film who may be the Rainmaker, and they're trying to decide what to do with him before he grows up and becomes it.
Because there are several kids who are an option. So
now, go ahead. You were talking about, so you want to hear more about the Rainmaker.
Just even more about the kid, because apparently, like, when they were describing it, like, the TKs, they had very little amount of power, but somehow, like, the mom and this boy, I guess they were, like, maybe more so mutated to the fact where they had more power. So I would have liked to know more about him, like, when were they born, where are they born, like, what made these two different, or if they were just, like, the next level.
So you're asking for a prequel already to Looper.
Well, not even a prequel, and that was kind of the sad thing. I was like, I liked it, it's original content. I really hope there isn't a sequel or a prequel, but I felt like, there could have just been just a little bit more about that.
What I would like is actually more original content of just, like, a 1-hour movie or something that's just the rise of the Rainmaker. because it sounds like it'd be a incredibly graphic and brutal action movie that would be really
Or
entertaining.
even just a graphic novel. Just,
Yeah, now see, I would do that.
somehow.
I would read a
Just-
graphic novel called Rise of the Rainmaker that tells that alternate timeline. Because
would
the film,
totally
there's
buy that.
I think 2 to 3 timelines
Yeah.
that get affected. So, but I'd like to see that story of how he gets raised
I did.
before it changes.
I enjoyed it. I wanted more just of that, of how he came to be.
Now, there's a few little inconsistencies in the story, but one of the things I liked about it is they even have a scene in there where they almost kind of embrace the fact that if you're going to tell a time traveling story, you're going to have a few plot flaws you got to overlook because time travel isn't real, folks.
Yeah.
So it's like, if you're going to watch Lord of the Rings, you kind of have to get over the fact there's elves. And they acknowledge in one scene, he's like, look, I think Bruce Willis says, we could talk all day about time traveling and the effects of it.
And make diagrams out of straws.
Sit
but
here
we're not
making
gonna fucking do
diagrams
that.
out of straws, and we're going to get nowhere, or we can kind of kick the movie off and keep going.
Yeah.
And so there's a few things, but what I do like is that the rules they set for themselves in the time traveling movie, they pretty much stick to. So even though, like, if you had cut off a guy's finger in the past, he should have theoretically always had that finger gone. It shouldn't just disappear.
But it healed.
They do, right, yeah. They do show that
I like that.
in
a
that
lot.
in this
Yeah, that was a
Right.
creepy
Oh my
ass.
gosh.
at least
scene.
in this universe, it's an immediate effect. But then they stick to that because they use it with the plot later. So that when they establish that, it's not just, oh, that's a creepy scene. They have to use that so that later when they use that device, you're not like, well, that fucking made no sense. That came out of nowhere, And I like that they set time traveling rules, and they stuck by those.
Yeah.
No matter what it was. It's like if they have ghost rules in movies or stuff like that. If you're going to set up a rule, then you have to stick with it the whole time. And they were pretty consistent with that.
Right.
Now, because there's a couple of different parallel timelines, I think once or twice they got confused because, like you were saying, when they said a kid should have been dead,
Right.
but he was alive. Tell us about that one.
I mean, if I think if I say too much, I might throw the spoilers in there. Like, I just ruined the movie for you.
Yeah, that's
But-
the hard part because the ending is not just the ending. There's the whole plot's great, and there's parts that I wouldn't want to quite give away.
Right. But I mean, I don't want
You
to say too
stuck?
much. Like, there's one part. I mean, I guess at one part they find out that the kid was born at a particular time.
Here, wait, here's the way to get around that. Spoiler alert. Come back
Spoiler
in
alert.
1 minute.
Okay. after he finds out, I mean, there's 3 kids and he kills one, and his wife was born later, and I was like, wait, he had nothing to do with it. Why is he? I mean, there was a couple inconsistencies that you
Yeah.
were saying, but again, it is time travel. I mean, but I did find that if you didn't think about it too much, then you'd be like, all right, fine.
Right,
it's
yeah, I
cool.
think you had to roll along with 90% of the premise and
Right.
ignore the little things that they had to put in there. Although I got to admit, when they had Bruce Willis kill a kid, I was like, yeah, I can't believe they just did that. I thought for sure.
I was pretty
We'd have
surprised
to.
that they did that.
Yeah, I really didn't think that would happen, and it was one of those
Yeah,
nice
I was
things
like,
in
he's
films
totally
where you
doing
were
it.
like, good, they went there.
Yeah.
So many other times they would have avoided it, and it was nice to see somebody have the balls to kind of like, no, if he's going to be killing kids, you have to watch him.
Gotta
you
go
have to
straight
see him-
up.
Well, I guess they don't show it, but yeah, you need to have that happen on screen,
Yeah.
Right.
So, but obviously, I think one of my favorite parts of the film is that kind of came out of nowhere. Is there's kind of an ethical theme to the film as well. And Rian Johnson said when he kind of wrote it, he'd always thought about the idea of when people are like, well, if you could go back in time and kill Hitler, and save everybody from the Holocaust, would you do it? And he was like, it's weird that everybody gets this obsession of if you can go back and kill someone else to change the future, would you do it? As opposed to, well, would you have done something different to affect something, And it's kind of nice that it makes the argument of, instead of going back and making other people do something different and changing other people, it's what can you do in the present that can affect the future starting now. And, part of the plot is that young Joe is trying to kill old Joe, for the whole movie. And, of course, he gets rid of old Joe, I'll say it that way. But in the way he chooses to do it, it's odd because he sees, like most of us do, you see your future self as a different person. You
Right.
eat something now, you're not thinking about the person in the future. It's still hard to have that self will, basically, to be able to take care of yourself in the future by thinking of yourself now, setting
Right.
aside for retirement or saving money or anything like that. And the whole movie, he kept avoiding that. He kept seeing old Joe as somebody else, somebody to get killed, somebody to get taken care of, because it wasn't him. And the end of the movie, he kind of embraces who he is and what he can do to affect the future, which is something a lot of people I don't think are willing to do, or it took a lot of personal responsibility at the end of the movie upon himself. And I thought that was a really cool code of ethic that the film grew, because he started out obviously not like that, and by the end, I think you're supposed to appreciate that character's moral choice of what he was doing as being the personal responsible choice. Instead of killing other people to prevent this Rainmaker from happening, there's something else he can do to prevent the Rainmaker from happening, but he has to sacrifice for it.
Right.
And I thought that was a really, how many times do I see a movie where I'm like, good moral argument?
Yeah.
Hollywood movie? That just doesn't happen very often.
But with that film, it kind of seemed like it was open for alternate endings. It was like, wait, you could go this way, you go that way, go a different way, and it'll kind of completely change everything. It is kind of open, so I'm kind of looking forward to the DVD to see if he comes out with something.
That's
extra.
true, because once they set, okay, here's what happens 30 years in the future, and then it partly negates that, then you're kind of left right with this open ending where, okay, well now everything's different, so where does it go? And then that's kind of where it trails off at.
Right, at that end, it's kind of assumed. I thought it was assumed that everything was okay.
Yeah, I mean, maybe maybe Nixon comes back and gets another elected later or something. I don't know. Yeah, maybe there's Rainmaker 3. I don't know. For all I know. But well, let's. Oh, I'm sorry.
I was just gonna try to talk about another aspect of this movie because we talked. It's a great serious action movie and it does great dramatic roles and some very interesting stuff with time travel. But I like the comedy in it.
Yeah, that was fun. I found myself chuckling. Every 5 minutes in that movie,
there was always like a little something going on, or like all the stuff with Kid Blue, who's one of the villains. And
yeah,
and
he was a great. The casting was great in the movie
Daniels.
too. Let's talk about this.
Jeff Daniels.
Jeff Daniels, Kid Blue, Bruce Willis was great in it. Joseph Gordon-Levitt. First of all, we needed to come back in just a second and talk about his portrayal of Bruce Willis.
Yeah.
Because if they ever want to make a Die Hard -1, they could go get Gordon-Levitt to play a young Bruce Willis in high school, and I would watch that.
Yeah.
So,
but there's just like it's not any one specific joke that really got me and stuck with me. It's just throughout the entire movie, like there's a lot of very serious issues going on, but it's kept just with this little edge of
some
humor.
of the camera shots, some of just the way the characters would speak their lines or move.
Yeah.
Or when he carves his name from one of the waitresses in his arm, and he's like, there's 2 waitresses that work here, and Eve's a shorter name. And he's like, oh yeah,
that's right.
And so I was pleasantly surprised that almost the entire movie I was chuckling every couple of minutes, and that was a nice bit of levity from
balances it.
Yeah, because there are some scenes in there that are really like, what the fuck did I just see?
Yeah.
And there's some really disturbing parts of that movie, and then to laugh through the rest of it is definitely a great balance. But I think my favorite line of the whole movie, which summed up the film, was when Joseph Gordon-Levitt and Bruce Willis are sitting across the table from each other, and Joseph Gordon-Levitt goes, "Your face looks backwards," and it was such a great line to me for 2 reasons. First of all, you're used to looking at yourself in a mirror all day, so to see yourself not in reverse, obviously it looks backwards to him, but then I liked it because it implied the time travel aspect too. I'm a young person looking forward, your face looks backwards. And so it was just a great little catchphrase of the movie that we're both the same and I'm not used to seeing you, but also you're looking back on me. And that was just, I thought Ryan must be sitting in his office and he wrote that one line. He's like, I can make a whole movie around that. The young guy is an old guy. Because that line was the crux of the whole movie to me, of the awareness that the characters are having. But it's just a toss away line that I don't even think, when we were in the theater, I chuckled and Jay laughed. And I think most people probably just went right over their head of like, why would his face look backwards?
Yeah.
And that was a great line. But so a lot of levity in it too. But so do we want to kind of rank this? Phil, I mean,
I'll give it a 9 out of 10.
I would do 4 out of 5.
I hesitate to give anything a 10 out of 10 just because nothing's perfect. Really.
Sticking it.
Well, then just make 11. You're perfect.
11, you're perfect.
Spinal Tap did.
A 10 out of 11.
If nothing can ever get to 11, then just kill yourself now. I don't get it. How about 10 is the best that a human could make?
Yeah.
And if God made a movie, it would be an 11. There you go. But Doug, what would you give it?
First run through 9, second run through 8. So it's kind of a movie that if you think too much about it, then you'd be like, wait, hold on, no, that's not right. So if you think about it one time, 9.
9, cool. I think I gave it a 10 only because it was, when I first watched it was a 9, but then to have a moral compass and to actually have something original to say, like. What's nice is when I go back and watch that movie again, I'll catch all the little things. Yeah. But to have a time-traveling movie, a sci-fi movie, technically a supernatural movie too, because the TK element that arises is never scientifically explained. So you technically have a sci-fi supernatural. well, it's a genetic change.
Genetic
but they don't-
mutation.
Yeah.
I
Genetic
was
mutation
given, like,
affecting something.
Explain.
That isn't kind of science.
Explain
to me.
with science. Right
Get into
there.
detail
When
about
blood
that.
comes out of someone's chest, that is not. I'm not counting that as science. So, but anyway, but to have that and then also have it be edgy, very well acted. The cinematography was great. Like
Yeah.
one of the things is when they show how Bruce gets away the first time, or old Joe gets away from young Joe the first time. It's more from young Joe's point of view, so it's all like close-ups, quick cuts. Everything happens real fast like an action movie. When they show it the second time, it's from old Joe's point of view, and it's just
I did
one
like that.
giant long take from way back in the field.
Yeah.
So you see the same action played out.
Yeah, and there's
but
none of the slow-mo or anything
right,
like
yeah,
that.
and so you get to see two ways that event was perceived. One guy who had already seen it happen, so you get a nice, clear, long, non-Ridley Scott take, and then you for the young guy who's experiencing it for the first time, you get this gladiator type in the middle of battle
Right.
type thing, and like those few times they did that, I thought so for me that, and I have a morally and ethically original film too, kind of push it up to 10 because I'm saying like. Yeah, if what humans can make, this will kind of go up there for me as far as sci-fi films go. Of like, Princess Bride or Shawshank Redemption or something like that. When
Right.
somebody says, what's a good time travel movie? The first thing's going to be Primer, and then it's going to be Looper after
Yeah.
that for me now.
That's hard to say because I watch Back to the Future because
Okay,
that's
well,
my
that's-
film. Like I watched that right before I walked into Looper. I was like, yes, I got time travel knowledge in my head right now, so I'm ready to knock this out. So
But those are more fun, though. I mean, yeah, because I obviously Back to the Future 2 is like one of the best movies of all time. I think
Yeah.
everybody on Earth can agree to that. So even Bollywood.
Even Bollywood. But I mean, it's hard to put it up there. I mean, I've not seen Primer. I've got to see it. I mean, I've never only heard nothing but good things, but I got to check that out.
I think there's one special effect in the entire movie. I think when they drop the little flakes on the thing that suspends it, I think that was
that's
CG,
it.
and it's it. But to have an awesome original movie with no special effects is pretty cool.
Yeah.
So, and that's one of the movies that I don't think broke any of the rules. Like they set very, very specific time traveling rules in that.
Well, that's what happens when an engineer writes a movie.
And that's the thing is the guy is an engineer from UNT, and so he was like, well, if this really worked, what would it imply has to happen? And so one of the interesting things when Shane Carruth is, by the way, the guy that wrote and directed that, shot it on like an $8,000 budget too. Amazing.
Yeah, really?
Oh, dude, that's part of it is watching. Like they made this for $8,000. It's amazing. But one of the things is he didn't write the plot to have a cool plot and then work in time travel. He said, okay, if time travel were feasible, what are the implications of that? And he worked backwards. As if you really had to go through that, what were the things you'd be able to do? What would you choose to do? Being stuck by certain rules and things like that. But so anyway, yeah, I guess I didn't mean to go off on Primer there. But yeah, especially but if you do like Looper, that's a film you should definitely check
It
out.
is up there for
and if
sure.
you like Back to the Future, you should go check out.
If you like
Primer
time
too.
travel,
you should. Yeah,
Period.
and if you're a time traveler, you should go back to when Primer came out and go check it out. But yeah, I think for me, I gave it a 10 out of 10. It's definitely going to be one that I also kind of judge 10 out of 10 as now that it's 2012 and I can Pirate Bay anything I want. Of course, I don't. People at home, never should you. But when I go, man, I can't wait to buy the Blu-ray and put it up on the shelf. That's a pretty good sign that it was higher than most films for me because I actually
Same way.
care about wanting to watch the special features and the commentary. By the way, there should have been more commentary on Avengers.
Yes,
but
there should have.
just one commentary by
Joss Whedon.
Joss
That's
Whedon.
it.
That was it.
That's it.
I wanted to hear like so many of the crew and the actors and everything, but whatever. So anyway, all favorable for Looper at least.
No, I enjoyed it. I really did.
I enjoyed it. for
Okay,
sure.
well, and it's still in theaters now, so make sure you go check that out. It did actually win a lot of awards. I think the Toronto Film Festival, it gave it a special Toronto Film Festival award, whatever that's called. I can't think of the name of it right now. I'm trying to pull it up. But yeah, I mean, it's holding like over 90% on most of the critics' ratings. Was Quentin Tarantino is raving about it. Obviously,
What's
He's
its
seen a lot of
Rotten
people into it.
Tomatoes score? Do you
Let's
know?
see. That would be.
Oh, that's a great score.
Let's see. The Rotten Tomatoes. It doesn't actually have that one on here. Although Roger Ebert gave it 3.5 out of 4. It's always when people give 5. Here's what I understand. If you're going to rank something on a scale of 5, do it in whole numbers. If you want to use 0.5, do it on a scale of 10.
Yeah.
3.5 translates to 7. It's that easy. Decimals.
Slow it on down there with your math.
Decimals. Yeah. But the AV Club gave it an A-. Empire Magazine 5 out of 5, and Metacritic is 84 out of 100, and over 44 critics have given it the title of universal acclaim. So, I'm sorry, 8.1. 8.1 out of 10. Just make it out of 100, and then it's 81 out of 100.
Is that from Rotten Tomatoes?
That's from Rotten Tomatoes.
But they're an aggregate score, so they just pull from several sources and average it.
Sure, but my point is 8.1 out of 10 is 81 out of 100. So just make it out of 100. I don't know why the decimal thing always bothers me when people rank movies. It's like, so what is it, 4.765?
I would like to
Does it ever get that specific?
I would give it a 9.1.
Yeah.
Out of 10.
What are you going to go out to the 1,000th? I don't understand.
9.
All right, so anyway, Looper, we're going to take a quick break, but make sure you go and see it. It's in theaters now. And definitely watch for Gordon-Levitt's portrayal of Bruce Willis.
Yes.
That scene where he's sitting being interviewed by Jeff Daniels is the little smirks and quirks he does. That all I could think of was Die Hard the entire movie because he nailed it.
Really?
So
I was thinking Hudson Hawk.
I'm always thinking Hudson Hawk. We're going to take a quick break, and we're going to be back to talk about the new single from the Analog Robot.
Yay.